In today's video, we will get your e-bike all set up before you first start out. First, you're going to need to install the battery. Obviously, it will have to be fully charged before you hit the trails. Now, batteries vary from manufacturer to manufacturer, but the idea is the same. You will want to match the contact points on your charged battery to the contact points on your bike's frame. Slide it in together until you hear a nice loud click. Then give it a quick wiggle, and give it a pull to make sure that it's not going to fly out at the first bump in the trail. Now, let's take a look at the cockpit area of the bike. It's called the cockpit because it houses all the controls for your brakes, gear levers, power modes, all the factors that will affect your ride on the trails. You really want this area to be nicely set up, so that nothing is awkward to reach or set up at a funny angle. The handlebars sit on a stem. You can add and decrease the height of that stem by adjusting the amount of space under the stem. If the handlebar is high, you're going to be behind the bars with nothing to pull up against. So you want it a medium kind of height so you've got something to pull on, and yet still feel a bit more in control. A higher handlebar will feel more comfortable, but when you get an aggressive ride in, you want to be on top of them. Another part of the stem is the faceplate. This is what holds the handlebars on, and is adjusted by first loosening up the bolts holding it in place. By rolling the handlebars back and forth you affect the sweep. If you roll the handlebars forward you're gonna find the extent of the sweep. If you roll it back it relaxes your wrist. So play with it to find the position that feels best for you. So let's move on to brake lever positioning. Out of the factory, brake levers tend to butt up against the grip tip. You might find it a little bit more comfortable to move the brake lever down the handlebar so that you're using only 1 or 2 fingers to brake. You don't need anything more than that on modern day brakes. Now, you can rotate the brake lever forward, so when you're in an aggressive riding position or a more neutral riding position, you don't have to twist your wrists up for that brake lever. This way the brake lever becomes a natural extension of your arm. If the brake levers are too wide for your grip, use the reach adjusters. So if you've got little fingers you can move the levers closer to the handlebar. If you've got big fingers, it's nice to have a bit more reach to pull that lever back. Another adjustment you might want to make on your bike is moving the gear lever. You want that gear lever to be in comfortable reach when you are either sitting or standing. So find that happy medium. So when it comes to tightening all those controls, just make sure they are tight enough, not to move when you're riding your bike, but loose enough to move rather than snap off in a crash. The saddle is a really important part of your bike. A lot of adjustments we can do on the bolts underneath. You can tilt the saddle forward and backwards, so the nose can drop or rise up. If you're feeling any pain on that saddle, you might want to adjust the seat angle. You can also slide the saddle forward and backwards on the rails. If you're feeling stretched out on your bike when seated, slide the saddle forward, making the reach shorter. If you're feeling cramped up, slide it backward. Tire pressure is important when it comes to e-bikes. To get the right tire pressures, there actually isn't a correct answer as we all ride differently. We all ride different places, and we all ride different styles of riding. As a rule, aim between 25 to 30 psi in both tires. If you find your wheel is spinning or sliding out, you can take a bit of pressure out. Increase it if you find that your tires are dinging against rocks and you're giving your tires a hard time. Good suspension is critical when it comes to riding your e-bike, so setup is vital. With a front fork, basically you need that to be about 15 to 20% of the sag. That is, when you sit on the bike gently, holding onto the brakes, with all your riding gear on, your helmet, your backpack, everything you ride with, making sure that the fork is moving down into the travel. If the fork's too stiff, it's gonna feel horrible out on the trails. If it's too soft, it's gonna dive into its travel and feel really uncontrollable. Another adjustment is rebound, which controls how fast the fork returns to its normal position after hitting a bump. If it's too fast, you're gonna feel like it's a bouncy springboard at the front. If it's too soft, it's going to pack down and feel like it's diving down. Next is seat height. Basically, when that pedal is at the bottom of the stroke, you want a slight bend in your leg. So that's it. All the basic tips and setup techniques for getting your e-bike prepped up.